Got the mechanic buttoning up the engine here to try it out.
You're what? Turning it on?
Yeah, we gotta test it out. How's it going, everybody? It's gonna be a pretty quick video. I just got the motor out from under its winter blanket, and I'm messing around with it here, just trying to see how and if it runs. It ran good when I tested it, or when I bought the boat, but it's been basically sitting out of the boat since then, so I wanted to make sure everything was still kind of squared away with it before I put it in the boat, because it's easier to do a lot of this stuff when it's out. I'm going to do regular maintenance stuff. I'll replace the spark plugs, kind of check the cap and rotor, make sure they're all in good shape. All the kind of normal maintenance stuff, kind of go through it, check timing and all that. But again, just wanted to do a basic kind of run test here while it's out of the boat. So that being said, I wanted to show you guys what the procedure is for setting this thing up. All right, so you guys don't need 2 batteries for this. I just happen to have 2, and one was kind of dead, so that's why I have them both hooked up. But first thing you want to do is you're going to take the positive cable from the battery and attach it to the starter. And then the ground cable can go either of 2 places. Right here is where I attach mine because it's the closer side, and you can also check over here. One thing I'll say is make sure that either side, that both of those are tight, because there is a ground cable for the rest of the engine that goes to that one spot, at least on this motor. The next thing you're going to want to do is, this is how I like to hook up the water line. So this is the hose that comes down from the front of the engine and goes through the power steering cooler, comes back, and this would be what hooks up to the transom plate for the through-hole fitting for the raw water intake. If your engine's closed cooling or anything like that, it'd be a little bit different than this. But if it's raw water cooled, this is what you would do. So you hook up the water line into here. I actually have a hose fitting that I clamp into there that has garden hose thread on the other side. I bought that at a hardware store. There, you can find them anywhere. And then this is kind of a female-to-female hose adapter, just so it swivels on both sides, and then that goes right into my garden hose. So you got water running. I actually like to hook up the Y pipe. A lot of people will install this to the transom plate as soon as the transom plate's in, but I like keeping it off for this purpose. If you don't have the Y pipe here, you have to run either like PVC pipes out of here, or else you're basically just going to get water splashing all over the motor when it comes out. So this is kind of nice that it shoots the water out away from the motor. Plus it keeps it a little bit quieter, if that matters to you. So let's review here. We got the battery hooked up to the starter post, and just to reiterate which post that is, it's the one that has all the orange, the red going to it, and then this is big red ones from the battery. The other one has the yellow and red, which I believe goes to the slave solenoid. And then this one, these 2 are basically internal to the starter. It's an internal ground, so those, just for reference, I guess, just leave those alone. Then again, you run the ground cable to the block. The only other thing you need to do then is hook up a fuel line. So what I do is I have a 5-gallon fuel line. This is actually the line that came off of the fuel tank in the boat. I just popped it off from inside. And then I hook it right up to the inlet here on the separator. I just put a new separator on, old one's sitting there. Just, it's a good idea to do anyway. So separator in, but when you replace this, one little trick is you want to fill it up with gas before you put it on, or else it's going to take a really long time to prime the pump and get fuel all the way up to the carburetor, because it's got to fill that whole thing up first. So once all that is done, there's really only one thing left to do, and this is kind of a pain in the butt. Some guys will actually buy an old Mercruiser harness off of eBay just to salvage the plug, but I just kind of made this thing here. So what this is kind of a jumper harness that'll go into the main engine harness here. So this one that has 2 wires coming out, I just bought bullet connectors. They only have one size, and none of them are actually technically the right size. So what I do is I actually just kind of splay it out until it gets a nice spring fit into, so the one with the 2 wires, excuse me, we'll go into number 6, which is this big one here. It's hard to see on the video, but oops, sorry, I'm not even looking at it in the video. Number 6, which is this big one. So on this motor, and I think most of the more recent Mercruisers that are carbed are this way, 5, 6, and 7 are the ones that you need to plug this into. So this big one that's flared out will go into 6. You basically just need to make sure it's a reasonably decent connection. It's not flopping around loose in there. For 2 reasons. 1, you need a good connection, and 2, if it starts sparking and you got fuel hoses and things kind of rigged up over here, it's no good. Then these other 2, it doesn't matter which goes to which because they're going into the same one here anyway. So these are actually the same bullet connectors, but these were too big, so I ended up kind of have to futz with them. I kind of clipped off some metal and shrunk them down a little bit just so I could kind of force them in. So one of these will go into 6. Just kind of wedge it in there so it's decently tight. And then this last one you don't want to plug in because this is actually what's going to make the starter turn. So you want to kind of go through and double check everything's the way you want it. And actually what I did before I even tried this is I took the main coil wire off of the distributor and just kind of let it hang out there, and actually cranked it over a few times until I was able to get the accelerator pump to pump fuel in here. So to check that, you want to have the choke open, and you take the throttle linkage. Let me see if I can show this. And you probably can't see it, but you can hear it. So there's the accelerator pump's actually shooting fuel in, so that way I know fuel's all the way up through the system to the carburetor. So once that's done and you've double checked everything, it's good. In my case, I have a battery switch here, so I turned that to on, made sure nothing was hot, shorted out or anything. And then the next thing you want to do is actually give it a shot. So if you did disconnect the coil wire till you got fuel up there, make sure you reconnect it, or else this thing will not start. And then basically all you're going to do is take this loose bullet connector and you'll pop it in 7. And as soon as that makes connection, the starter will turn. So let me show you what that looks like. Hey guys, one quick thing I forgot to mention that's pretty important. Before you start the motor or even crank it for the first time, you want to make sure that you disconnect the power steering pulley or remove the belt from it. I forgot to mention that before, but if you don't do that, my hoses in this case are just kind of hanging there loose, and any fluid you have in there will essentially come shooting out the one side, and then it's also not good for it to run without any fluid in it. The fluid acts as kind of a lubricant, so just wanted to point that out. So to stop the motor like you saw there, all you got to do is pull out either one of these or the whole thing. Basically all that's doing is disconnecting power that goes to the coil. So that's basically it. It's pretty simple. No, this is not the first time I started it. So actually, to be honest with you, it started up faster the first time because I had pumped the accelerator pump so many times. I actually may have flooded it this time. But I was surprised it did start up pretty quick. I'm happy with how everything's sounding. One thing that had me a little concerned is the first time I had it running, when I stopped it, I noticed the coupler kind of reversed there at the end a little bit, which I know is a problem because that can actually suck water back into the motor. So I need to check on that and make sure that doesn't happen anymore. It might have just been a thing where it wasn't warm or something. Because the last 3 times I've started this thing up and let it run for a couple minutes and turned it off, it was fine. It didn't reverse, or there's a word for that. It's like reversion or something like that. But yeah, that's how you start a motor on a stand. Again, if yours is fuel injected or a much older version, it may be a little bit different, but on Alpha 1 Gen 2 or Alpha 1 Gen 1, it's probably the same. Carbureted. Bravo drive's probably the same, as long as it's carbureted. I'm sure once you get into fuel injection, things may change a little bit, but that's it. Hope you guys found this helpful. I know I saw the instructions for this online, but there's a couple videos out there and everybody does a little bit different, but this is how I like to do it. So that being said, thanks for checking out. I know it's a short video, but hopefully you guys find this helpful. I'll see you guys later.